welcome back to the initiative.
Yay, episode 5. Is that really recording on the camera?
Yeah, it should be. Should be
Okay.
doing both.
Cool.
So we got a better camera to
Yes.
record.
We're slowly figuring out, Adam is slowly figuring out this equipment thing and how it all works together, and it's very complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts and expensive parts and programs and buttons and switches, and
Yes,
you comfy?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Sorry.
So this is, what did I say, episode 5?
Yeah.
And this is our second video podcast. So we're slowly improving. And we're thinking about different topics that we can talk about on the podcast. We keep having these moments where we'll be talking about something as we do, because we are often in each other's presence. And then we have to say, wait, no, save it for the podcast. So that's happened how many times now? Like 5 times now? So we keep writing down these ideas, except one we totally forgot about. And
Last time we did not forget, so
yeah, we finally wrote down this one. So why don't we start with that?
start with.
Since it's a little bit more Star Citizen related.
Sure.
So we're going to talk a little bit about, was it Star Citizen Live or the longer one where they were talking about pirating?
I don't. Yeah, they were talking about the pirating with. I don't know how it came about, but it just led me to believe what should the consequences be for pirating?
Yeah.
To make it balanced, but
They,
not
they teased it a little bit.
Yeah, but not making it so undesirable that you wouldn't want to pirate.
Right.
You have to have the high risk, high reward aspect in it. If the risk isn't high enough, so many people are going to do it.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. Is that, are people technically pirating right now, or are they just being dicks?
Yeah. I think people are just being dicks. I think there's contracts that you can take that include pirating and smuggling, but there's no risk behind it yet. They're introducing the law system in 3 point. Oops, our video is gone. That's not good.
Stand by for technical difficulties. We'll edit this out. Did it just fall asleep? There it is. Is it still recording?
Yep.
Okay.
Still recording.
Definitely the same shot that we had before.
Yeah, we're still
Close
figuring
enough.
it out. So keep talking.
Interesting things. Yeah, so they were talking about it in one of the Star Citizen videos, and that got us to kind of debate about the really intricate, delicate balance of trying to balance consequences, rewards, and risks. So the thing with pirating is that you can't have a pirate system without a law system, which is they're bringing in. Is that in 3.6 or 3.5?
Yep, they're going to start introducing the new version 1 of the law system so that merchants will be able to detect what's stolen versus illicit goods. I'm not sure how in-depth that's going to be, but it's going to start introducing that pirating mechanic. So, if you get a huge reward by just pirating from NPCs or from other players, then that's not going to be fun for the other players.
Right.
So right now you can just, go in, do a battle, and your ship's destroyed, and then you can just recover it and, claim an insurance claim on it. In 5 minutes, you get your ship back. I mean, you do have to start out from wherever you last spawned or the
Right.
space station, but still, there's not much consequence in that. You're not losing any money. You're not losing your ship. So they're just going to keep doing it again. So that's kind of why people are. I don't know why some people are doing this, but they just ram each other off the
Which is
landing pads.
So
There's-
it's like
there's-
such an example of what happens when you don't have rules. People will just make up random crimes.
Yeah, and it's not-
They're bored.
Yeah, I mean, there's no consequence. They die, they just respawn right at Port Olisar. So that's kind of the big one.
Yeah.
Is they respawn back there. They could just recover their ship. If they have more than one ship, they could jump in that ship, claim the other ship they destroyed, and then keep ramming people off. There's no benefit. There's no um, consequence to doing that. So, like, eventually they're going to roll out, I would think. If you're going to claim your ship, it's going to cost a certain amount of money to, a deductible amount.
Oh yeah, and we were talking about if if one of the major consequences to being a pirate is that you can't claim insurance on your ship, or that you can claim insurance on your ship, but none of the customizations will come through, which is one of the things that they talked about as a benefit to claiming your ship that's going to come along. But we were talking about if it could be like kind of a status symbol in the pirate world to have a completely customized ship because you've never been caught.
Yeah, I mean, you would take those pieces of the pirated ship you just destroyed and just pick it apart and piecemeal
Like a
together.
reaver.
Like a reaver from
Everything but Firefly. Yeah.
Fireflies. But yeah, then piece it together. Really crazy paint jobs. Really powerful weapons, but durabilities may be crap. Just pieces start falling off, and you keep putting them back on.
Right.
So
like,
it's just
splashes of blood and Ooh,
yeah, and you can I mean, that's your reward, your trophy, I guess, is you put it on your ship, and like you wouldn't touch that person. You're like, oh my god, that's really heavily customized.
Right. That's the scary part of it.
You wanna maybe you just drop your cargo load and just give it to them.
Yeah.
And just cut your losses. But on the flip side is, you can do that and you can get your trophies. But if you lose that ship, you shouldn't be able to insurance claim any of that. Maybe you have a base ship that you have an insurance claim on, or maybe if you have a high law rating, crime stat, you wouldn't want to have them just recover everything.
Right.
Or maybe you just like, oh, you're a criminal, you can't claim your ship anymore in this system. Sorry. So the only way for people to obtain ships are by renting them again. Maybe you won't even be able to rent because you're a criminal, or maybe you just lose all your money in the process, or something of detrimental value.
Something that playing the game for hours and hours and hours and becoming really good and having a huge stockpile won't defend you against, because you're always going to reach a certain point where there's a good enough amount of people that are so high level or whatever that it doesn't matter to them.
When you face me, volume goes
away. Okay. But also there's the issue of if you're just gonna have people with junker ships then, who are like, I don't care about this ship, so I'm gonna go commit a whole bunch of crimes in it. You'll basically have disposable ships.
Right. I mean that's the idea of pirate ships. They're gonna be very disposable. You invest any type of money into it, or good material, or good weaponry in it, then it's likely you're just going to have it destroyed or lost. So that's kind of where I would see pirating. Make it most beneficial to have more ships of less value than...
It's just going to be a whole bunch of Toyota Corollas around.
No, it's going to be like more so the
Lovely.
1950s type truck with supercharged Mad Max style engines in them that they're going to blow up soon, but until then they're vicious.
Okay, which brings me to my second question, which is that going to attract a certain kind of player? And is it going to be, how are we going to control, like, what if everyone decides to be a pirate, or the majority of people decide to be a pirate, and there's only a handful of people that are playing the good path? Like, won't that be a little bit...
I don't think... I think if you make the risk so risky enough, a lot of players like me won't find that enjoyable. It'll just be too stressful. The risk would, you kind of lose all of that. And
I suppose that's true.
Just went out on us again.
No, it was just the mouse. I'll keep jiggling it.
Oh, we got to work on our
I
podcast
feel important
setup.
now because now my job is the mouse jiggler.
Yeah, so we got one part, the screen going out on us, which I could easily adjust. Or
Yeah,
another
what's with
part
that
is the
short
camera
ass screen
probably
time?
has a timer on it too.
Yeah.
We're bad at this.
We're not bad. We're learning.
Yes.
I think this is pretty good quality for podcast number 5, considering neither of us are film people.
Yep. Just we'll get our together,
ducks in a row and
you know.
our affairs in order. But I mean, the whole point is that we like talking about this stuff. So let's keep talking about it.
Yes, let's.
One of the aspects of games where you can choose to be lawful or unlawful that I find frustrating is that it really changes the social dynamic, especially in an MMO. It changes the social dynamic to the point where, I mean, it's kind of at that place now where whenever you see another player, you're not really sure if you're safe or not. Like, are they going to keep it so that you can't see people's usernames?
Oh, that would be still nice. I think
You like
maybe
that
if you're,
aspect?
well, if you're like in an organization, a guild type, you would want to be able to see your. You'd be like,
Yeah.
you should be able to recognize their face.
Otherwise,
like in
everyone's
real
going to have to
life.
wear name tag, literal name tags.
Right. I think if they make the facial, if they make the DNA facial face creation so unique, where you can create a face that's really unique and not overly generic.
Still, everybody wears helmets.
Yeah, I mean, then you're hiding your identity, and I mean, even in the real world, people won't know who you are.
But in like the RPG aspect of it, I spent so long creating my face in Fallout 4 that I just constantly went around with a crappy head armor because I didn't want to cover up my face every time I was in a cutscene or.
I mean, there's going to be glass helmets, so if you want people to see your face, then you have.
Well, that would be an obvious solution.
They're doing that.
I don't know.
It's already existing in the game.
Yeah. But no, because I saw on the Barons chat the other day, someone was saying that
Barons chat?
Shush. Someone was saying that they were like calling out somebody else's username and being like, everybody knows that you're a jerk or whatever, which is interesting to me because that's kind of you in terms of notoriety or trying to figure out who the big bad guys are. Not being able to see somebody's username is really interesting because there's not a lot of other ways to figure out who somebody is unless you know their playing style and you know somebody who was near their ship at some point and if they bragged about it on the chat. Like that aspect, I feel there's fewer consequences.
All right, so we're still recording. So,
what else do we want to say about pirating?
Sorry for that. It's what do we want to talk? Well, I kind of wanted to talk about the toxicity of being able to show your name and stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be ganked or any of these griefing situations. Like if someone is targeting you, maybe you would have a unique signature you can lock into, or they are implementing a thing where you can scan the player and get information about them. So maybe that is their name. So if you want to hide your identity, maybe you get better blocking hardware scanner jammers. Or maybe you want to publicly display your name,
right,
in your ship, so others of your team can find you if you're in a safe area. Or if you're walking around, you can display something above your head because everyone's wearing like a HUD of some type. So you'd be able to be like, oh, well, this person's. So you would only see their name if you had your helmet on,
right,
and with a HUD. And then if you're publicly displaying your name, you could be like, oh, hey, you're Joe Schmo. That's good to see you again.
right.
You can do that. So, but moving on to like pirating and whatnot, there's going to be organizations that are exclusive for pirating, and they're going to be notorious because they're part of that organization.
Yeah.
Or they could be part of smuggling. They don't do illicit drugs, but they do some illegal minor activities.
Is that going to be like a preset thing, or are they expecting it to evolve that way? Like, is this a predetermined plan?
I mean, organizations have charters that they can define what they want their guild to be like, and they manage those expectations. They manage,
That's cool.
How they want to be seen. And then if people in it are not liking it, I mean, they just leave and they form. So, I mean, it's like any guild in games.
Yeah. And I feel like it's really important, especially in this kind of super open world, super choose your own adventure type of game. It's important to give people like constructive outlets for mischief, because otherwise you're going to end up with situations like everybody's just ramming each other off of landing pads. Like,
right.
Piracy is important because without it, people will invent piracy.
Yeah, there's going to be some gameplay mechanics to punish griefers, like ramming ships. But then there's also the gameplay and elements of the police force or the security forces in the system. And then also organization-wide specific security. Maybe organizations are going to enforce even further restrictions in a system.
Yeah, I almost feel like you need mods.
Yeah, they will essentially be moderators of that.
Human mods.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
But like the moderators would be controlled by the organizations in a sense. And if they're being too griefy or something, you can have another organization enforce it. But they might just. It's going to be tough. If it gets too PvP, then it's just going to be unplayable. But again, I think if you make the consequences of fighting not worth it, people are going to, in real life, you don't want to die. You don't want your ship to blow up. It's a lot of money lost. So make that the point of, we're not going to have PvP is a thing, but it's, you can only do that in certain systems where law enforcement is absolutely non-existent.
Right, which lots of games do. This isn't a new concept.
Right.
And every game with PvP has this problem. And some have it worse than others, but a lot of games have figured out ways to create specific rules.
Those games do not like in World of Warcraft games, you're just not punished enough for that. You die, you respawn, you can run back to your body. They just don't make the consequences large enough because they want people to PvP.
Yeah, but aren't there areas in WoW where even if you try to damage somebody else in a safe area, you can't?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the server. They try to have guards come in and attack. And then you can turn on your PvP-ness. But again, that's not realistic. They need to have other senses of control, like you're fighting someone in law enforcement's area, your crime stat's going to go up.
Yeah.
You're going to be destroyed, and you lose all your money in that you have dear. But maybe people won't have large sums of money. It'll be physical assets instead, and then you can store those. So if you do die, you won't lose all your money as a pirate. But you can't really get those materials unless you can smuggle them out of the area.
Right.
So that maybe that's where that comes into play. So yeah, you can't afford anything because you're a pirate, and as soon as you're turned in, you lose all your credits. There's a lot of cool stuff there. I don't want to go into further detail, but I kind of want to just talk about high risk, high reward. It's going to be a tricky thing to accomplish.
Well, because, high risk, high reward, you're always going to have players that have been playing long enough that high risk isn't as high of a risk for them as it is for somebody else. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it should be a percentage thing. It should be X amount percentage of your credits will go away because otherwise it's going to be meaningless to the people who have billions and billions of credits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole like being having your crime stats go up, like that should be a scary thing.
Yeah.
When I was playing No Man's Sky, I mean this is a bad example because it's very simplistic, but I probably wasn't even that high of a level, but I was playing No Man's Sky and I was mining asteroids really close to a space station, and I accidentally shot up the space station. And my crime stats or whatever their measure is went all the way up to 100, and I had to run for my life. And I don't think I even made it. Like I even specifically landed on a planet so that I could get away from them. And then I like tried to hide in a hole or something, and the Sentinels knew. Other ships in the area were coming at me. It was scary.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting a high crime stat and you're in a protected area, ideally you should either have to run away immediately,
Right.
or you have to have a large group backing you to make it worth it.
Or like in GTA, you have to just kind of go out with a bang.
Yeah.
I'm talking like 5 stars in GTA. Like when you have 1 or 2 stars, you just
That's true.
run
GTA had like you're really screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, it's fun if you die. There's not.
Well, yeah, because like the FBI is after you, and there's a bunch of helicopters and missiles and troops, and
you
like
only lose so much. I mean, you can start off after that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So again, go out with a bang. Like you're really screwing yourself over, or your organization. If you do that, that's kind of the risk that needs to be there. But
I mean,
the
I could see
reward
people...
also has to be there too. Like if you're robbing a bank, you want it there to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna risk a lot of stuff for something that's not gonna have any value.
If you do it with a guild, you could do a heist.
Yes, heists. Ooh. Yeah, I know, and I was just looking at EVE Online and kind of all the scamming people do in that game, and like,
that's probably what they're afraid of.
And yeah, you can. There's a lot of infiltration into the guilds in that game, and that might happen in here as well. I imagine there'll be similar gameplays of infiltration, and
you can impersonate another player.
There's people that are going to be counterintelligence officers too.
I want to be that.
Counterintelligence?
I want to be the anti-pirate. I want to be a pirate hunter. Oh.
Bounty hunter? Or a pirate hunter?
Pretty much, yeah, like a government contractor bounty hunter. Lawful neutral.
They have contracts for that. But right now it's for like the mega corporations in the system for Star Citizen.
Well, yeah, there really is no government. It's more like which corporation are you living under right now?
Right. Yeah, but you could be part of an organization, and that would be your role for that. So they're
like the adjudicator.
They'd be like, oh, okay, this player is really kind of committed an ultimate crime against us. Lindsay, you go out and capture them.
Yes.
And
I'll get all the best guns and ships and stuff because I'm a government contractor, so I'm getting paid too much.
And you'll have to like interview candidates joining the corporation to see if.
Okay, no.
That's counterintelligence.
No, I want to be a silent mercenary.
So just a bounty.
I don't work
hunter,
with people.
You're a bounty. That's just a bounty hunter.
I'll give you a number you can text. That's it. Find me on Craigslist.
Like in John Wick, you get a text. All right, go get this number. 5 mil.
Pretty much. I mean, talking about world building.
You got to be really good to be a bounty hunter, though. You think you got what it takes?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to play this game unless I'm really good. Let's just get that out of the way.
Right.
I mean, I cannot play MMOs if I'm bad at them. The social pressure is just too much. So I'm going to pick one thing. I'm going to practice. I'm going to grind. I'm going to research. I'm going to be really good at that one thing. until there's nothing, no way, nowhere to grow, nowhere to improve, and then I'll be confident enough to talk to real people.
Yeah. I don't know, like, if combat would be your
No.
forte.
No.
I would say, like, the thing that you want to do with farming or, like,
I can be an illicit
exotic plant
farmer
grower. Yeah, you'd be the
with
best
like
at exotic
extreme
plants.
defenses, and like I'll invest all my money in the
Oh,
best
you'd be a chem
shields and
factory.
auto missiles and oh yeah. Okay, I'm no longer going to be a government contract assassin for hire. I'm going to be a meth cooker,
Meth cooker.
basically.
You are the danger.
I am the danger. But yeah, I struggle with that all the time because I want to be really really good and I want to be useful, but I don't want to be directly responsible for whether or not other people
It's
have
gonna
fun.
take. It's gonna once they develop those gameplay mechanics in Star Citizen, then like with learning a new ability and to master it, it's gonna take at least what is it, 10,000 hours?
Oh, that's not true for video games. I would be good at every video game if that was the case.
Oh, okay. You just don't complete video games. That's the problem.
I
You
do.
gotta-
I've completed a lot of video games. If I don't
What's
complete
the
a video
last
game,
video game you completed?
it's on my list, so I can't talk about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Our second segment of this podcast, which I think we can move on to now, is we wanted to talk about world building because that's one of the things that draws us to these kinds of stories and games and experiences, is because there's a sci-fi world or fantasy world that sucked us in, and set a really good stage for the story. So
Yeah, and let's just transition easily from Star Citizen into. So one of my world building examples is Star Citizen. They have multiple writers on their team, and they've been writing for years now on lore. They're creating new languages from scratch, a lot like Tolkien did.
oh yeah,
History.
that's my shit.
It takes place in 2950-ish era, so that's hundreds of years of history you have to take place after 2019. So I mean, it is gonna take after it is human
Kind of
history.
like how Star Trek does.
Exactly. So they kind of have that going for them. It's human history. Uh, they write about pop culture. They write about celebrities within the game. Just they have they tell stories through the ships they build and like the history of the ship manufacturers,
Corporation history.
the corporation history. They're building all these stories and histories and publishing them. By the time that this game is released, which is never, they'll at least have Squadron 42 come out, the single player game. But so when Squadron 42 comes out in like a couple of years, then they'll have all this world building all in place for if you want to read it, like before you even play the game, and then that in itself, makes the world's already built out if you choose to seek that. I'm not sure how Squadron 42 is going to be at world building in as a single game.
Well, the world is already built.
But
it'll be more like plot building.
Right. Yeah, they have to start out from scratch. They have to assume no one's played this game before. But if you do read a lot of that stuff, that is really cool, and making that game going to be so much better if you do.
Yes.
So that's kind of why. So that was my first option.
Okay.
You want to go?
I have to
What
decide which
example?
one I want to start with because I didn't really think of them in any particular order.
Yeah, we don't have to do that.
I think I'll bring up the one that I just teased then. So the game that I most recently finished was called Inside.
Oh.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm sure everybody's...
Want to do a brief description of the game?
It's hard because I really don't want to spoil it, but I want to talk about the world of it. So basically Inside is an indie game that I played on Steam a couple months ago. Long time ago, actually. Yeah. And talk about the most recent game I finished. And it's a 2D side scroller, kind of. It's more animated, so it doesn't... there's layers so that it doesn't feel 2D, and it's beautifully artistic. But you're playing this boy who has to travel from the left to the right of the screen. And you think, yeah, that's a pretty basic premise of a side scroller, but it's actually built into the world so that you are continually running from scene to scene, and all of these environments are perfectly knit together. So I think you start off in a forest that's kind of on an edge of a road,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go through there, you learn the mechanics and everything. I think you do a tiny bit of fighting.
It's kind of a side scroller puzzle game.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
puzzle. The puzzle elements come in later, and I don't necessarily want to spoil those, but they do. Okay,
Well,
so
there's many different types of puzzles.
yeah,
Each section area of the game has different types of puzzles for you to overcome.
yeah,
And it's also a survival game.
it's a
I think
survival
that's-
game. It's a really quick game. I think I finished it in like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a great replacement for like a movie night or something, which I love. I love those quick games that you can just get sucked into and finish in one playthrough. But this, like, there was something about the way, because I don't like to.
So how's the world building? What part of the world building did you like
I
the most? With
really like the aspect of having a character, because you are that character, being the protagonist in a story where you can kind of go wherever you want.
that? And he's a silent protagonist.
He's a
too.
silent protagonist. You have to figure out the story as you go along. It doesn't tell you anything, but which is why I don't want to say too much, and because it's so short, I don't want to spoil anything. But I can tell you that the landscape of the world of this game is that you are constantly moving from left to right and moving further into a particular place. So there's no transitions. There's no physical elements that wouldn't need to be there in that place. So you start off in the forest, you cross a road, you kind of go through a town, I think, and then you end up in this industrial, like, warehousey area, and then that takes you into this building that you're trying to get into, which is a giant building belonging to one company. And the premise of the game is that you kind of have to figure out where you're going and why, but you can't stop moving left to right. So that already is really fascinating and sucks you into it. But the thing that excites me about it is that it's really the only experience that I've ever had where you can just walk and climb and go wherever you want. Like, when I drive past a factory, or like the port near where we live, or an industrial park, or a residential area, like, there's something primal in me that just wants to jump over fences and get as far as I can before somebody yells at me. Like, going up onto roofs and then
You know
going
you
down
played too
and
many
then
video
sneaking
games
in through back doors.
when
Yeah,
you want to go in abandoned industrial.
Exactly. I want to
zones.
find the treasure chests and stuff. And it's some, like, illicit inner urge to just go anywhere. And then the story comes in where you start to figure things out, and it becomes a little bit more surreal and a little bit more cerebral. And I won't talk about any of that, because that's a whole nother thing. That's the story of the game, and it's really good and you should play it, but it's really screwed up. So just be warned. But I really like the aspect of exploring in a way that you get to see parts of this world that you don't normally get to see. And not like it's some exciting thing. It's just, it feels realistic and terrifyingly alien at the same time.
Right. And I think they do that so well with its approach to
Yeah, because of
telling
the art.
the story through level design and the puzzles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, now I want to play it again.
so, book both of us have read.
Yes.
I read it first because it was a New York Times bestseller. I don't know why I was looking in the New York Times.
There's your nice belly.
But the Wool was the book Wool.
By Hugh Howey.
Hugh Howey. He wrote a book about a silo in the Earth as kind of like a bunker to escape from nuclear fallout or whatever. So I mean that's the premise of the book. Giant silo. So what is it, like 150 stories?
Yeah, it's
deep?
not like a traditional corn silo. It's much bigger.
Yeah, so like a story, so like a big story, not like a normal story in a house. Tall ceilings too.
Mm-hmm.
So one story is walking up that very difficult, just to show giant the hugeness of this
Yes.
structure
Yes.
underneath the earth. Um, so you're so the premise is sometime in the future, an apocalypse happened in the past, and there are survivors in the silo, and
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple generations already have passed in this silo, and it kind of centers around um, one character at a time, and they show the story, the struggles of trying to live in the silo.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of life would you be? What kind of role you would take in a silo with, just thousands of other people.
How is it
living in here.
structured with the levels? How does it all run together? And it's very similar to a lot of spaceship stories because everything is isolated to that one silo.
Yeah, and they don't know what's happening out there. The fallout's too bad, so it's just them, Shaky Mouse.
Purpose.
And it's just so they start out very small with a person, and then they kind of go through the silo without having to explain the whole silo all at
Mhm.
once. So you discover different aspects of the silo through the eyes of
Yeah.
different people and their different roles. You're going to have engineering.
You meet someone who works at the
farmers,
very bottom and somebody who works at the
security.
very top.
Yep, exactly. And the just having that story told with limited information about the world, so you can just focus on the story, and then introduce more of the story as you
Yeah.
progress as the character, and you get different perspectives from other characters.
Oh, yeah, the best world building is revealed through story. It is really annoying when someone builds a very complicated world and then just teaches it to you like it's an encyclopedia. I find that the best stories, no matter what media you're talking about, the best world building comes from you exploring it yourself, not from reading 5,000 words of description on it.
Yes, and I think that's
Will
why
does
like
it really well.
superhero movies with origin stories are so good. Is they're starting and they're discovering things slowly from the ground up. And but yeah, I think Wool is a good example. Just kind of, I didn't want to go too deep in the story. It's a good sci-fi story.
Oh yeah.
I
It really
highly
sticks with you.
suggest reading it. But I just talking about the limited information and growing that story from the ground up.
Yeah.
Or the ground down. That's bad.
Good joke. Good joke. Segue.
All right.
What's my next one?
Your next one.
I should be figuring this out while you're talking, but I didn't want to appear rude. Okay, my next one is a little weird, and then I'll go to my more obvious ones. And I purposely didn't look up anything about this beforehand because there's only one specific aspect of it. When I was younger, before the internet, the thing that I would do to find books that I wanted to read was literally wander down the aisles of the library and pick things based on the cover. So I ended up reading a lot of weird things. And one of the things that I read was this 2-book series called Sunwing and Silverwing. And I don't know which one came first. And I don't even know who wrote them, which would be a really rude thing to do on a podcast, is mention something and then not say the name of it. So I'm going to look that up while talking. But basically, I was really attracted.
Just gonna adjust your microphone.
Attracted is the wrong word, actually. When I was younger, I was very intrigued by stories about talking animals because I was a little bit basic, and also because it was magical to me. That's all I wanted to be able to do was talk to animals. So I started Kenneth Oppel, Oppel. It was written in 1999 by Kenneth Oppel. Oh, this Sunwing is the sequel. Anyway, it's about bats. Like, the main characters are bats, and you follow them throughout this, like, political story. Have you ever read Watership Down?
No.
Okay, well, Watership Down is about rabbits, and it's a giant political thriller about rabbits and them moving around and trying to find a new, what do they call it? Rabbit home or whatever. Down. They were trying to find a new down. And it takes itself really seriously. Like, it's not, in no way do you think this is about talking animals. You think it's about politicians who happen to be rabbits. So that's the kind of thing that Sunwing and Silverwing does. Like, it's all about like succession and retaining tribalism and dealing with industrialization and figuring out alien populations that you don't understand, which in this series is humans.
So why is this form of world building? Why couldn't they just tell it with humans? Why is this form of
because it's the premise that sucks you into it, because the whole time you're reading these serious conversations between two characters, and then it's talking about like what their wings look like while they're talking, and it talks about flying in a way that feels really real, and it talks about one of the characters, or multiple characters, I don't remember, gets captured and put in a zoo. So they have to like break that character out. So that's the main drama of it. And there's like a drug involved. I think it's some kind of tranquilizer dart or something. I don't know. It's really dark. And I remember thinking that when I was reading it, I was like, this is not appropriate for children, even though it was in the children's section. But the world building aspect of it that I really liked was that the bats were run by...
Hey, you're redlining the microphone, baby. Hey.
Just pet her for a little bit. That'll calm her down. Oh my goodness sakes. She needs attention at all times.
You
so
wanna
this 1
keep
hour
going
is
and
difficult
I'll
for her.
Pay attention to her.
So the world of these bats, their society is run by elders who retain their history. And the way that they return their history is really cool. They have this cavern, because bats live in caves. They have this cavern that has been smoothed out in the inside from generations and generations of bats, like trying to smooth it out. So it's like this perfectly non-porous stone cavern. And I don't think it's very big, but what they do is, because bats hear and speak through echolocation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is, one of the elders will go into this room, into this sealed cavern, and they will tell a story of their history. They'll tell about a war, because they're at war with owls, which is the funniest thing. But they'll tell the story about a war, or about a birth or a death or something. And then the story will bounce off of the walls forever.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's really cool, because anytime anyone gets like inducted into this higher circle or whatever, they have to go into this cavern for a certain length of time and like absorb all of the stories. And it's really fascinating the way that they tell it, because there's this aspect of, you don't know the whole truth of your own history. You don't know the death and the destruction behind the stories that you hear from your elders, or from your history that you know, because it follows a younger character as the main character, I believe. So it's really, really interesting and very dark and deep for a 8th grader to read. And it's about bats. So that was kind of my first experience of, good writing and good world building and good storytelling can turn something that ridiculous into a legitimately interesting and immersive world, which is just, it was mind-blowing to me at the time. And even though it's not really, I wouldn't think of it as sci-fi, I think it's a perfect example of how to describe a world in a way that you can really tell any story.
Yeah, that's I was not thinking about that for like,
that's fine,
an aspect of world building. I just let you go after that. It's a really weird premise.
I told you it was going to be a weird example, but that's the first thing I thought of, and I couldn't not talk about it.
Cool. Let's talk about one that we've both seen. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mentioned that
Yes.
this was one of my favorite TV series,
Yes.
just in general. World building through character development. So, kind of
Mm-hmm.
going back to character development, um, you know, the world isn't really any good without good characters. A lot of the stories told through character growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just more interesting when you just have good characters in general. I mean, there's some stories that are good with not really good characters, but like Avatar was really good at world building. They took like traditional Asian storytelling and worlds, um, but it was the character development of the kids. They're preteens practically.
So they're learning a lot as we are.
They're learning a lot as we are. They're introducing new characters all the time,
They're physically traveling through this world, so they're seeing things for the first time.
and they're actually changing their not personalities, but like how how they respond to the world
Mm-hmm.
is changing. They become more wise. They become more intelligent. They're not static characters. So I mean, if you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think the the anime, you should really go watch that. But I just kind of wanted to bring that example up as you know, world building through the character, um, and like you have Aang, the main character, who's Airbender, very positive outlook on life, but so much bad stuff happens to him. Like him struggling to not become evil himself, and somehow remain positive. And then you have Zuko, who comes from an evil family and does evil stuff, but he's inherently not evil, and he has um, his uncle, who's like a beacon of light for him, and seeing him struggle between
Yep, him.
the battles of good and evil with his inner turmoil. That's great.
Yeah.
So I think being able to tell that story through character development like that.
Well, and
is
and through the world that they're in, because I think when you see the characters develop, it's because of the traveling that they do and the things that they witness.
right.
And talk about a main character being interwoven with the world. Every time Aang goes somewhere, he gets a little piece of the Avatar history, kind of reminded. He's reminded of a little bit of it, or he learns a little bit of it. So he's part of the land itself,
Right.
and part of the reason that there were so many different um, the climates basically created these different societies which interacted with the idea of the benders in a different way depending on where you were.
Yeah. Exactly. Different societies, different strengths in their societies to learn or weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
and he grows at a slow pace, which is much better storytelling, I think.
Yeah.
Because they they learn things too quickly, or they don't explain why they know a thing. It
Especially
lose
in a
interest
quote
too
unquote
quickly.
kids show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which I don't
yeah.
think it is.
I mean, it's clever because it is a kids show and it teaches kids. I would think it teaches kids values that are important in
Yeah.
life in general. So there's that aspect, but some really deep stuff that I think adults can really appreciate as well.
And I think it also, I kind of going to take back what I said a little bit in that I really like children's stories that don't talk down to kids and that allow them to have these deep stories,
Right.
because kids understand a lot more than we give them credit for, and a lot more than most TV shows and media that's made for kids gives them credit for. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of times you have like censorship issues coming in and all of that, but Avatar is a perfect example of telling a complete story.
Yeah. Telling a complete story, talking about dark things without.
Even though nobody
needing
ever
to-
really dies on screen.
I mean, they do a pretty good job. Yeah, they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't really
it's-
notice it unless somebody points it out, where you're like, hey, by the way, do you ever see anybody actually die on screen? Considering the amount of
He
wars they portray.
never show people dying, but it was very clear that that person's not coming back.
You know,
ever.
they went off frame.
like, even
and
with main
off frame
characters.
happened to be 600 feet to their death. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, you don't need to see them
Right.
gruesomely die. That's not the point.
you don't
I
see
mean,
Bambi's mom die either.
No, jeez, wow, really bringing up some harsh stuff there. That was mine. So you pick yours.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit more mainstream, and I want to start talking about the Hunger Games.
Well,
Because
okay.
I use the Hunger Games as an example for almost everything. And I'm talking specifically about the first book/movie of the Hunger Games, and specifically the arena. I do like how the different districts are set up. It's a little bit simplistic, in my opinion, and you don't really get to know that much. Like, there's nothing really to explain why the districts are so far apart, besides the fact that there's
It's the isolation.
the
right?
wilderness between them.
It's so they can't communicate with each other.
Yeah, but the arenas.
But yeah, they have a huge world that they kind of show right away.
Yeah.
That it's difficult to understand why things are. There's too many questions that that you're asking right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
But
I agree.
I really liked the technology, the biology and technology behind how they created the arenas. So I don't know if they mentioned this in the movie, but in the book they talk about they're kind of speculating about what the arena might be, because everyone remembers the arenas from years past, and like one of them was in a desert and nobody lived, and one of them was in a smaller more Colosseum type world, and
Right.
one of them was colder. I don't remember how, but then you get from Katniss's perspective of her emerging from the world of the arena that they're in, and her realizing, okay, I'm wearing something a little bit lighter, a little bit waterproof. I'm probably in a jungle environment. And then lo and behold, they're in kind of a rainforesty type place.
Right.
But when you first, I'm just going to talk about the books because it's the best thing I can remember. But when you first come into that world, it feels like a real forest, and you don't really understand how they could recreate that. Like, the only example that we have to compare it to is like our idea of like a botanical garden or something, where it's just a really big area that happens to have nature inside of it and it's all artificial. But no, this feels like a real forest, and the only thing that cues you into the fact that it isn't real is because of all of these different attacks that are going on, and the fact that you can sometimes see the grid of the dome that's around them, and the way that the environment reacts so quickly when the game maker wants to change something. And
Yeah.
it's really well done in that it only tells you so much so that the story becomes thrilling.
Right. And they can do that by just focusing on the storytelling through
Yeah.
a particular character. So you kind of get these anecdotes, from Katniss, hearing stories from other characters within it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it's in a domed area similar to Silo, where the bulk of the story takes place in a confined area, and that's where the best world building happens. And it goes back to good character development with Katniss, and being able to tell the strife within the civilization of humanity in its current state, with these 12 districts, with
And
each of the 12 people all fighting against each other.
Yeah, and it kind of is supposed to be a summary of their 12 districts, in the fact that they all contribute to different industries. They all have different varying levels of socioeconomic stability, and they're all connected by the fact that they're overruled by the capital.
Right.
So you run the risk of having these heavy-handed metaphors and messages because it's set up that way, and you run the risk of that happening. But I think, especially in the first book, that doesn't really happen. You get enough of the world, you get enough of the, you care enough about Katniss, and it's enough from her first-person perspective. I think it's in first person. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's
That
definitely first
it
person.
doesn't feel like you're being. It doesn't feel like it's pulling you along in an artificial way. Like my criticism of a lot of books like The Hunger Games that are YA post-apocalyptic hero protagonist type stories is that they tend to be a little bit on the nose with that stuff, where
Right.
it's like you are coming into puberty and now you're going to be divided by your strengths and weaknesses, and we're gonna um, dictate your future by your aptitude, and this is the little room where you have to fight all of your peers, and everybody's just a stereotype of a particular personality trait or
I mean, they definitely go off of that fact, but
they do,
then
but
you learn
they do it
about
right.
each person within those districts, and you realize, oh, they're not the sum of their district.
Yeah.
They've got their own problems. They've both experienced death in different ways,
Yeah.
etc. So,
And it's
yeah.
really hard to tell that story in a movie. I feel like you can tell the visual story much better in a movie, but it's really hard to understand all of the different characters, because there are a lot of, other district representatives that get a lot more of a personality in the books than they do in the movies.
Right.
Because it's just impossible to tell that in that short amount of time. And I would say my criticism of the second book and the third book and the movies definitely is that now that we understand that this world can be artificial and created by whoever has the power to do that, it becomes a lot more outlandish and less familiar. So when before you were in just a forest, and then there were particular animals or particular weather events that were just super scary and turned up all the way to 11. In the second book, the arena is divided into 12 parts that have like these different areas of the clock, and either you're set on fire, or you're being poisoned by fog, or you're being suddenly swarmed with birds that are able to scream in the voices of your loved ones. Like, it's less the aspect of immersion into a scary story or into a suspenseful story, for me at least, and for a lot of people I believe, involves taking the familiar and making it unfamiliar.
You're saying that it just starts
It's
being
unfamiliar
more
from the
familiar.
beginning.
Okay.
It's so artificial, and it's so built up and prescribed and specific that in order to be scared or in order to be really engaged, you have to 100% understand how every aspect of it works. Which is, you can do that in a second and third book because you've built up the world already and people kind of already understand what the capabilities are. But as a standalone story, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where world building could, I think within that context.
World building can't stand alone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that.
Even though you've also seen and read The Hunger Games.
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
I get an A then.
all right. Let's do one more topic.
Yeah.
And then we'll call it quits.
Yes.
We're already past an hour.
Not really, because we have a good chunk to edit out.
Oh yeah, we screwed up. So I want to bring up The Magicians. It's a TV show on the Sci-Fi channel, and I kind of want to talk about the Sci-Fi channel and its original programming in general. It has strengths and weaknesses that I think are important to identify. You have The Magicians, where like the first half of the first season, where you could just tell that nothing meshed well. The characters didn't get along with each other. They were trying to be the premise of the show is trying to be like a edgy Harry Potter, and it was just weird.
It was a sexy Harry Potter fan fiction with very bad sci-fi and even worse acting. Or not sci-fi, CGI.
Do they? Yeah, I mean, when you're in Sci-Fi channel, you accept some of the cheesy CGI.
Which I get. I mean, I was born and raised with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so...
But that was the 90s. That was acceptable.
Yeah, that's true. Keep going.
All right. And then so the issues were, and that's kind of how a lot of the Sci-Fi Channel TV shows go. They struggle in the beginning, but they have the time to really get that feedback and kind of hone what their creative outlets into what they actually want to do.
Which is really rare in television.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the whole Firefly effect. Firefly wasn't given the opportunity to keep going. They would have been successful.
But it was good from minute one.
Well, yeah, a lot of. But again, it's the Sci-Fi Channel giving creators the opportunity to hone their message. Maybe it was good from the beginning, but it allows them to hone it a little bit better to bring in more audiences. So the Magician, the chemistry between the characters got a lot better. They brought in other characters that were really good dynamic to the show. The storytelling got more focused in the direction they wanted to go.
Got funnier.
They didn't focus as much on the plot devices like magic, do a magic thing and good stories come out of the magic. No, they focused more on the story and what they wanted to do within it. Some of the premises within the show are ridiculous, but that doesn't matter because they were able to go with it and focus on the characters and kind of the struggles they go through more so. And then the crazy world around them is a character in itself, crazy magical world.
Kind of reminds me of Once Upon a Time.
Yeah. In
the way that world is set up. So can you explain the difference between Fillory?
Fillory is a fictional, or Fillory is another dimension, I guess,
So that's like the
Magicians.
Middle Ages dimension, where it's like another planet where there's fairies and...
Yeah, basically a demigod or a full god creates this world to his own pleasure.
That's so weird. And it exists kind of in reality simultaneously with the real world.
Yeah, they don't collide with each other. You have to go through like a portal. They don't explain that too much. Again, it's the less you explain, the better in the Sci-Fi instance. What did you want me to compare? Do a comparison?
Well, because there's the school. I forget what the school is called.
Breakbills, I think.
Breakbills, yeah. There's the school. There's the Muggle world, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And then there's Fillory. So those are kind of intertwined in like which world which character comes from, and some characters go back and forth between all three, and then at some point the wizards or witches or whatever they call themselves from each world are opposed to one another. So the way that it functions is you're always telling a story in one of those three worlds.
Yep, and I think a lot of shows like that and Storybrooke versus from that other show.
Oh, Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time.
Also a show I didn't watch.
So, yeah, okay.
But they feel, from what I've heard from the other room, they feel similar to me.
Yeah, so you have one world, you have Breakbills, which is on Earth, essentially, but there's
protected by magic.
But you're in the real world. physics works the same way, and you can start telling a story based on that reality.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it's the
think
same timeline.
they do a good job at transitioning between both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You can be like, oh well, now I'm in Fillory now. I'm in this other world, and they started the story build each effectively. You know, they were starting to tell stories within that world through character developments, and describing the world they're in.
Which that's not easy
slowly.
to do.
No, no, and I think that's why it's great that the Sci-Fi Channel allows these shows to develop it.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a really good idea, maybe it's from like a book, but you just don't have the flexibility of
Or the funds.
writing
Yeah.
or the funds. So just kind of getting in there and starting, and then just building something great from that. And I think that's why The Magicians has made it to season 3. They were given that time.
Yeah.
And now I'm
They really did
really
improve.
attached to these characters now.
Yeah.
You know, they're flawed, and you know, their annoying quirks from the beginning were maybe softened out, but it's still like that enduring. You know, they even bring back those annoying parts in later seasons to like, oh crap, you know, it shows them that these characters have changed too.
They kind of grow up with their script. Can I offer a pessimist view of what happened?
Sure.
So there's your version, which could be that Sci-Fi gave them a chance and then they improved. And then there's my version, which is Sci-Fi threw a bunch of money at a bunch of different things and said, you know, make a show, here's the premise. And everyone had to scramble around to come up with something, and then they were given the time to be creative within those constraints. I feel like it was overproduced from the beginning because they didn't have a solid foundation, and then it became better because everyone's artistry kicked in. But that's based on absolutely no fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's very plausible. I mean, you got mega companies, production companies that are like, all right, we have some ideas. We think this will do well.
Yeah.
We don't have anything in the Harry Potter adult world. Go at it.
Which is a little bit, given the year that it came out, that was a bit what it felt like, because that was, I think, right after the last Harry Potter movie came out. So it was like, we need to fill this void.
Yeah, it was, yeah, definitely around that time era. So, I mean, it's,
I mean,
they have some good writers. They have good actors.
Once it had more soul,
and this is true for a lot of other TV shows too. Yeah. You have Killjoys, which I think is still airing.
I didn't even give that one a chance.
That one was good from the beginning, but they had in a giant world that you were shoved into, and it was just like, it's just
The
too
Expanse
foreign.
was kind of like that too.
Yeah.
The Expanse is an excellent world, and it's extremely complex, and it's great, and the cinematography is great, and the script is great, and the acting is great. I've seen the entirety of both seasons, I think, and I still have no idea what's going on.
We haven't seen the second season.
Whatever, but the whole first season, nothing stuck. I don't understand the plot at all, because it's just so far into that show don't tell thing where I need a clue. I need a Cliff Notes
so
version.
You're saying like,
I don't understand it. It goes too fast. It's too complicated. It's too, everything is kept, you're kept in the dark for too long on a lot of things.
Yeah, the pace was good, but they were introducing too much story for you to have to
too many characters
piece together.
I mean, it was really, really good. It just feels like I'm in a movie. It feels like I'm in a 10-hour movie, and I was late to the theater, and I missed the first half hour where everything was explained for me. Right. Not that I want that. I don't want a solid half hour of exposition. Most of the time, exposition drives me nuts. I hate it. I hate falsely inserted exposition. I think most movies, TV shows, books, or whatever would be much improved by having no exposition at all. But I feel like The Expanse is an exception to that. They could have dealt with a couple of characters who are like, well, this planet, it looks a little bit different from my day. Like, just every now and then, put me in there and let me learn about something, you know?
Yeah, they could have done with more episodes. I think if
Oh
they're,
yeah, if they had the time, yeah.
yeah, and or just not going down some paths, not introducing characters maybe until season 2,
Right.
or plot lines until season 2. You know, build off from what you have in season 1. You have the time. They had a good go at it. Maybe just focus on the detective's storyline first
Right.
of all, and introduce the other characters as you.
Yeah.
But that show is a complex one. But again, the it's a sci-fi show, so you know if it was on like Fox,
Oh, they
the
wouldn't
Devil
even give it
Fox,
a second.
no.
It wouldn't even make it to a pilot.
If there wasn't sex, drugs, or explosions, it wouldn't.
Yeah,
last on
which is really funny when you watch trailers for sci-fi shows that are on other channels. When the trailer is played on other channels, you can tell that they edit it to look more palatable for mainstream audiences. I'm pretty sure for The Expanse, the only thing that they had as a trailer, or at least as a teaser trailer, was that slow-mo zero gravity sex scene from the first episode.
Was that show?
I'm pretty sure that was The Expanse. It was either The Expanse or Killjoys.
It wasn't Killjoys. It was that other sci-fi show.
Oh, the Defenders or the Darkening or something that started with a D. It came out around the same time. Also sucked.
It got better with season 2. I agree. It totally sucked. And then I started getting attached to the characters. They killed off some of the annoying ones.
God bless Adam because he has the patience and the kindness and the, what's the word for it? You give shows the benefit of the doubt for a lot longer than I do.
And that's why I watch the Sci-Fi Channel shows.
Yeah, I can't. I have a long history of not watching things until I'm already sure that I'm going to like them.
I should just give you like a rundown of what happened in season 1, and then you can just watch season 2 with me.
No, yeah, pretty much. Or give me like a 30-second clip of what the acting is going to be like, and then I can watch it from the beginning.
Oh, I warn you about that too. I'm like, hey, just so you know, these characters don't get along very well.
Yeah.
But like,
no, he'll literally sell a show to me and be like, it's a really cool world. The sci-fi elements are really cool. The effects are really cool. It just has really bad acting and a really bad script. And I'm like, those are the 2 reasons that I watch anything. Good acting and a good script. If you take those 2 things away, I'd rather look at a blank wall.
okay, I get it. Yeah, no, I
won.
I don't know how to refute that, but yeah, I mean, it for me it's trial and error, and then I grow attached to the air, maybe
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
But
Kind of like how you're attached to touching your mic constantly. Oh, no. No. No.
sorry, I need to adjust it. You know, I see other podcasters do it. It's just I bought the cheapy mic stands that take in all the noise. We gotta get some better ones
Oh, okay.
that doesn't absorb the sound because the mic stand's attached directly to the microphone.
Yeah.
But another time,
Yeah.
we're slowly upgrading our
I
components.
think this quality is great. Like, think about how.
It just has an
far we've
auto
advanced.
off feature after 30 minutes.
I mean,
It's our monitor keeps turning off after 10 minutes, which I can fix that. The battery on it, I don't know how long it lasts. It seems to be doing good.
well, we're not actually recording on the camera. We're
Doesn't have
using the
autofocus,
camera.
so if I go in, there's nothing. So
Autofocus is annoying.
our desk kind of is in a bad placement. I have nothing in front of me, just dogs crawling on me. Yeah,
I think we're doing great.
We're doing great.
We have nowhere to go but up.
I hope.
Yes. But I mean, last week we had like a 1080p webcam that we were using. No, we were using your phone.
Yep, we were using my phone, and
We were in the dark
there goes
ages
the
last
camera
week.
again.
You know, we should just end here, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
On that sudden darkness.
I found the button where how to turn on the screen again. So
See, learning, character development, da 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 da.
I see how you're trying to play into that. We are characters, and we're growing, and you're growing with us, and you're growing attached
Sounds
to us.
cheesy when you say it like that.
I thought that's where you're going.
Yeah, it was, but not like explicitly.
Okay, let's end it there. Press the recording button-y thing, and we're the initiative. I'm Adam, and
I'm Lindsay. We're streaming every now and then.
See you next week, maybe.
Twitch.tv/the initiative. See you next week for episode 6. Bye.